In House of the Dragon, one of Rhaenyra's most questionable actions was her meeting with Queen Alicent Hightower in episode 3 of season 2. After disguising herself as a septa, she sneaks into King's Landing with her loyal Kingsguard, Steffan Darklyn, in hopes that she might talk with the Queen Dowager to find a solution to end the war. Even though her son was killed by Alicent's and her husband Daemon killed Alicent's grandson. She still hopes for peace and prays that their past friendship can help them find some sort of solution, as both of them have no desire for war and more members of their families to be slain. During this confrontation, Alicent learns the truth about the Song of Ice and Fire. It wasn't Viserys' dying wish to make their son Aegon king, but an age-old story passed from king to heir. One he told her by mistake because he was delirious and thought he was talking to Rhaenyra. Despite the truth being revealed though, Alicent refuses to acknowledge that she made a mistake, because at the end of the day, she has no power, and her sons Aegon and Aemond will do whatever they please, and people will believe whatever they want regardless of who says what. Still, Alicent hopes for peace too, despite everything that's happened, and lets Rhaenyra leave even though this guarantees that there will be more conflict in the future as long as her son's primary competition is still out there. But what if instead of letting Rhaenyra walk for old time's sake, she decided to take her prisoner? It's a golden opportunity after all. The leader of the rival faction walked onto their home turf practically defenseless. Most people would take advantage of such an opportunity. Her father and sons definitely would have. So let's say Alicent is of a similar mindset this time around. It wouldn't actually be that hard to make Alicent taking Rhaenyra prisoner fit within her character. As we've seen in House of the Dragon, Alicent Hightower is constantly pushed as a naive desirer of peace. She wants to save lives, not end them, and her old friend Rhaenyra provides a great way for her to do just that. When she looks upon her old friend in the Sept, having doubled down on her choices, she realizes how great of a chance she's been given to avoid all this bloodshed. She already knows that even if she did misunderstand Viserys, people are going to believe whatever they want when it comes to this war, support whoever they think is best for the Iron Throne. And even if she did tell Aegon and Aemond the truth about things, the Song of Ice and Fire, there's really no chance that they would stop the war based on some old story told by their delirious dying father. Things wouldn't end until they die or Rhaenyra does. But maybe that doesn't have to happen. If she takes Rhaenyra prisoner, then maybe she can talk to them, give them another solution. Capturing Rhaenyra after she willingly walked into enemy territory would speak volumes. They could use the situation to their advantage by making Aegon seem better in the eyes of the people and Westeros. After all, he wasn't stupid enough to sneak onto Dragonstone to talk with an enemy on the off chance they would want peace. Rhaenyra could be used as a tool for Aegon, something to bolster his image in the eyes of the people, his position in the war, and to make people lose faith in her cause. If they force Rhaenyra to submit to Aegon, acknowledge his claim over hers, they could stop this war. They could make her call off Daemon, make her sons and the Velaryon stand down, and no one else would have to die. Not even Rhaenyra if she complies with them. Her capture would be detrimental to the Blacks, and if they play their cards right, no more blood would have to be spilled in this needless conflict. So, in this timeline, instead of telling Rhaenyra to leave quickly, she exits the Sept without a word to her former friend, and notifies the Kingsguard outside that Rhaenyra is inside the Sept and that they need to capture her. As they ascend the steps to the Sept, Rhaenyra exits. She locks eyes with Alicent briefly as she realizes what's been done. Steffan Darklyn, who came with her for protection, would instantly rush to her defense. But with no sword, no armor, and just a plain knife to his name, he isn't really much help to her. He'll offer some distraction as he lunges for the guards and Rhaenyra tries to make a run for it. But the guards will eventually kill him, and they will catch Rhaenyra. She and Alicent will have a brief scuffle before that happens though, with Rhaenyra pulling a knife on her like she did in the Sept. It'll be reminiscent of what happens between them on Driftmark, but this time Rhaenyra is the one who cuts Alicent on the arm before she's restrained. Alicent did get a similar cut in the show when a riot broke out in King's Landing in a later episode, but since that most likely won't happen due to the changes I'm making here, I still think this is a creative way to have that wound come into play and still have that parallel between the characters. Rhaenyra will be taken to the Red Keep and presented to Aegon as the Maesters patch up Alicent. The first thought on Aegon's mind once he sees Rhaenyra, outside of taunting her for how stupid she was for just walking into King's Landing, is that this is the perfect time for him to kill her. His primary opposition is right in front of him. It's a golden opportunity to secure his claim to power. But not only that, it's the perfect chance for him to get revenge. Remember, Aegon still firmly believes that Rhaenyra had his son Jaehaerys killed. While killing Blood and the Ratcatchers was all well and good for Aegon, to have Rhaenyra, the one he believes is the orchestrator of the whole plot, right in front of him, he'd feel like a fool not to capitalize on his vengeance. Aemond would also agree with his brother in this instance as well. They should kill Rhaenyra. It would be a demoralizing blow to the Blacks and leave them leaderless. But Alicent, ever the yearner for peace, would jump in and say no, that Rhaenyra is actually more useful to them alive than dead. If they kill her, there's no guarantee that the Blacks will stop fighting them. Rhaenyra has 4 living sons, and the oldest one, Jaehaerys, could easily take up Rhaenyra's crown after her death and assume leadership. Then there's Daemon. He's always been one for conflict. If they kill his wife, there is no way he would ever stand down and meekly submit to Aegon's reign. He would keep fighting out of spite, if nothing else. But if they keep Rhaenyra alive, force her to publicly concede to her brother and acknowledge him as king, then the rest of her family would follow. Alicent would even suggest that Aegon send the Blacks peace terms in exchange for Rhaenyra, a way to get them to step down before things take a turn for the worse. I'm pretty sure everyone, from Aemond to most of the counselors, aside from Maester Orwell and Larys Strong, would just tell Aegon to kill Rhaenyra, but I'll say that in this timeline, he listens to Alicent and sends peace terms to the Blacks. Either they submit to him, or Rhaenyra dies. But if those terms with the Blacks fail, he'll try to get Rhaenyra to publicly acknowledge him as king and submit in exchange for her life. For now, though, she'll be locked in a cold, black cell under guard, while word is sent to her family of the capture, and they await a response from them. While they wait, I believe that in a situation like this, the Battle of Rook's Rest, which was going to happen pretty much after Rhaenyra left King's Landing, would be put on pause. As we saw on the show, Aemond and Criston Cole were exchanging letters the entire time he was on his way to Rook's Rest, and Criston Cole was already on the move, ready to carry out this attack. During one of these exchanges, Aemond would notify Criston Cole that Rhaenyra has been captured, and tell him to hold off on attacking Rook's Rest until they get a response from the Blacks. If they refuse the terms, then they'll proceed as planned. If they agree, then they'll figure something else out. The way I see things playing out from here, though, is where initially Rhaenyra returned to Dragonstone in the show, is actually where the Blacks get word that she's been captured by the Greens. This would be a very rough spot for the Blacks to be in, now having to deal with the fact that their leader got captured because she decided to go on a stroll in King's Landing. Jaehaerys definitely has a mix of emotions at the news. Worry for his mother's safety, and anger that she made such a reckless decision that jeopardized their position. Rhaenys wouldn't know what to think of the situation, and Rhaenyra's counselors would be squabbling amongst themselves over what to do. Some of them would definitely want to surrender after the news. Rhaenyra was the whole point of their conflict, and she walked right into the enemy's arms. This would be disastrous for them politically, as many people outside of the council would question Rhaenyra's capabilities as a leader upon learning of this information. On the other side of that, though, some people probably would want to keep fighting, because who knows if Aegon will actually keep his word. They could surrender, and Aegon may just kill Rhaenyra anyway, then execute them all on the grounds of treason regardless of what they did. Rhaenys would eventually get everyone to shut up, though, and say that Jace is the one who should determine their next course of action. Since Rhaenyra never named a hand, Daemon is at Harrenhal and Jaehaerys is her heir. He has the highest authority in the room. Not to mention, this is his mother's life hanging in the balance. So he should make the call on what they do. If they continue to fight, then the chances that Rhaenyra will be killed instead of held hostage and use as leverage would be much higher. I mean, it's pretty much spelled out in Aegon's terms. Her dying in addition to being captured after walking into King's Landing voluntarily would be detrimental for the Blacks' reputation during the war. And it would be seen as such a huge victory for the Greens if they took out Rhaenyra so effortlessly like this. In any other scenario, if Rhaenyra died some other way, like in battle, I am certain that Jace would not give up the fight. He would take up her crown as her heir and continue fighting in her name. Heck, he still wants to continue fighting in her name now. But knowing that his decision would basically determine whether his mother possibly lives or dies is a tough pill to swallow. He could comply with Aegon's demands and risk being killed anyway on the grounds of treason. Or he could keep fighting like he wants to, hoping that the Greens are just bluffing, that Rhaenyra is too valuable of a hostage for them to kill, and risk having her body on his conscience if he's wrong. Is he really willing to sanction his mother's possible demise and wound their cause even further so he can keep fighting for a metal chair? It's not a good situation, but Jace will have some time to think about what he wants to do next and ask some questions to the counselors. Is there a way to avoid this? To avoid complying with Aegon's demands? If Rhaenyra could sneak into King's Landing herself, could they do the same? Could they infiltrate the Red Keep and set her free? Now, I'm sure some of you are thinking that Mysaria is on Dragonstone at this point in time, and she could offer a way to help them get into the Red Keep and free Rhaenyra. But if I'm being honest, I doubt that that would happen. Blood and Cheese somewhat worked because Cheese knew about Maegor's tunnels, but Cheese is dead, along with any other rat catchers who may have also had this knowledge. Who knows if she knows anyone else with this information of the castle's inner workings, and who would be willing to risk their lives to free Rhaenyra. And any help that she might have had within the walls of the Red Keep are gone. Remember, Larys killed a lot of her spies, so her options are very limited. Then, who's to say that Jace would even listen to Mysaria in this instance, since he doesn't seem to like her that much in the show anyway. In his eyes, she doesn't really have a place when it comes to discussions like this. In fact, I'm pretty sure that Mysaria would be killed by the Blacks if she tries getting involved here, since she is the one who helped Rhaenyra sneak into King's Landing to meet Alicent. She's the one who advised her on this. The whole thing looks like a setup, that she was working for the Greens the entire time. If she lets this knowledge be known, then she's screwed. There is no way Jace would trust a word she says after that, so the smart thing for her to do right now would be to keep her mouth shut. Besides, even if they could get into the Red Keep, it wouldn't be likely that they could save Rhaenyra, since she would be under heavy guard, and I doubt that they have the manpower to free her anyway, especially after Steffon Darkland died. A rescue attempt would honestly be more trouble than it's worth, since a fight like that would just attract more attention, more guards, and that would mean more fighting and more people would end up dying. The only option that I could see Jace thinking of outside of a surrender is an all-out attack on King's Landing to get Rhaenyra back and take the throne all in one go. But this would honestly seem like a bad move. Not only does the city have defenses built for dragons, the Blacks don't have that many dragons to work with at this point as well. They only have Caraxes, Meleys, Vermax, and Moondancer. With Rhaenyra captured, Syrax is basically unusable, and Daemon is in the Riverlands doing who knows what. By the time they send him a message about what happened and get a response, it may be too late for the Queen. While Jace would be gunning for Daemon's help and the army from the Riverlands that he promised them, the Blacks are pressed for time, and the amount it would take to petition Daemon for help could seal Rhaenyra's fate. After all, the Greens are going to be expecting an answer from them soon. Not to mention, at this point, Daemon has just arrived at Harrenhal, and hasn't even begun to earn the loyalty of the Riverland houses yet. And once word spreads of Rhaenyra's capture, many of them wouldn't want to support Daemon or Rhaenyra if she basically walked into enemy hands. So it seems that the Blacks can only rely on dragons, and the only dragons that they can really rely on right now are Meleys, Vermax, and Moondancer, against Vhagar, Sunfire, and Dreamfire. Vhagar is bigger than all the other dragons and the biggest threat. Sunfire is larger than Vermax and Moondancer, and Dreamfire is pretty big too. Even though Helaena is not a fighter, the Blacks won't count her dragon out, because who knows if she may be compelled to fight if they attack King's Landing. After all, her son just died, so who knows what she's willing to do. It does not look like a good matchup for the Blacks if they decide to attack King's Landing with just 3 dragons, especially since Daemon won't be coming around for a while. And that's not even mentioning that attacking King's Landing could prompt the Greens to just kill Rhaenyra regardless. So even if they do manage to win, they would still lose something in return. There are a lot of disadvantages for the Blacks in this timeline, and while I know the Blacks are people who would keep fighting until the end, I don't think any of them are willing to make a decision to keep fighting if it means that Rhaenyra is going to die. And since there is no suitable alternative that would make them happy, I see this timeline ending in a green victory. Jace and the rest of Rhaenyra's supporters bend the knee to Aegon. Rhaenyra is kept as a hostage by Aegon to prevent anyone else from taking up her crown. Jace, if he isn't killed, will be exiled to the wall, and his dragon Vermax will be kept in King's Landing, so he can't grow and be used against them. Rhaenyra's other sons will also be taken hostage. Daemon would definitely still stand in defiance, though, and refuse to acknowledge Aegon as king, but I don't think he'd have too many supporters eager to help him after the blunder of Rhaenyra's capture and Jacaerys giving in to Aegon. So, all in all, this was a pretty sucky timeline for the Blacks, but it's where I'm going to end the video for today. You guys let me know your thoughts down below on what changes you might have made to this timeline. For now, though, hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, subscribe for more content, and I will see you all next time.